As your scenes get more complex, the amount of clutter that you'll inevitably have to work around will start building up. 3ds Max offers a couple of different techniques that you can use to improve your production workflow by doing what is referred to as either hiding or freezing objects in your scene. Let's take a look at how that's done. I'm going to be using a file named Hide and Freeze, which you can find in the Working Files folder. When wanting to hide objects from view, your options can be found under the Display tab in the Command panel. The display icon looks like a little TV screen with a box in the middle of it. In the Hide by Category section, you can quickly hide everything by type by simply checking a box. If wanting to hide all of our scene geometry, for an example, we could simply check Geometry. If you had a bunch of lights in your scene, you could easily hide each and every one of them by checking that option. So Hide by Category works just as its name would indicate. You'll find using the individual hide section just below that even more helpful. In there you'll find commands for hiding what's selected, what's unselected. You can hide things by name, or you can even click directly on an object to hide it. Let's take a look at how those work. On the right side of my screen, I'm going to select the green post. If wanting to hide that specific object with it selected, I'll then on the right click Hide Selected. You'll find it sometimes easier to select the objects you want to keep on the screen, then choose the Hide Unselected command instead. Let's window select all of our objects other than the remaining 3 green posts. With those now selected, back on the right, we'll this time choose Hide Unselected. If having done a good job in naming your objects, you can also use the Hide by Name command. This brings up a dialog list that you can then choose from. Let's select the yellow container. You can either double-click on its name or single-click, then hit the Hide command in the lower right-hand corner of the dialog. You'll also find a command called Hide by Hit. Once active, you can position your mouse on top of the object you want to hide and simply click. When things have been hidden from view, you can use the Unhide commands. Let's choose Unhide by Name. When the dialog opens, let's select all 4 posts, unhiding them. And if you want to collectively unhide anything that might be hidden, you can simply click Unhide All. You can also find most of those hide and unhide options under the right mouse click. Let's select the blue rails. We'll then right-click, then in the upper right-hand square we can choose Hide Selection. Select both containers, right-click, then choose Hide Unselected. And we'll finish that off by right-clicking, choosing Unhide All. Now, when you do hide something in your scene, you need to realize that there's both a good and bad side to doing that. The good side to hiding is just that. It's hidden. You can't see it, and it won't render. But the bad thing to hiding is unfortunately the same. Things are hidden, which actually creates a problem if you're needing to use that hidden object for, let's say, lining up other things in your scene with what you've hid. In a situation where you still need to visually see something, you're better off freezing that or those objects. Here's how that's done. Let's say that you'd like to create a few more containers. You're frankly not in need of working on the enclosure, but if you hide it, you're a little bit out in the cold as to where to position your additional copies. So in a situation like that, you're better off doing what they call freezing the enclosure objects. Back in the command panel, directly below the Hide category, you'll find one called Freeze. Go ahead and open that up. Back in your scene, click on the blue rail. Now, we're going to want to freeze this. Back over on the right, go ahead and click on Freeze Selected. If you now try to select the rail, you'll notice it's unselectable. So you can see it, but you simply can't touch it. Let's now select one of the containers. Let's say that we now want to freeze everything else in the scene other than the container itself. On the right, this time choose Freeze Unselected. If you have a clear shot at an object in the scene that you want to freeze, you can also choose the Freeze by Hit command. Let's activate that, then click on the remaining blue container. Change your viewport to wireframe by typing F3. As you can see, frozen objects display in wireframe mode in a light gray color, which sometimes can be trouble all depending on the color of your viewports. Let's take the view back to shaded. There's a way to get around that color overlap. Back on the right, click on Unfreeze by Hit. With that button active, go ahead and click somewhere along the rail. We can now right-click to get out of the Freeze command, reselecting the rail. Once you've done that, right-click, then in the menu, down on the lower right square, choose Object Properties. 3/4 of the way down on the far left side under Display Properties, take note of the very last checked checkbox. It reads Show Frozen in Gray. The reason your objects are showing frozen in gray is because that's on by default. Let's turn that off, then click OK. With the rail still selected, this time we'll freeze it by right-clicking. In the upper right-hand square, choose Freeze Selection. Now, even though it remains in its original wireframe color, it can't be selected. Just be aware that when you freeze an object back to its original wireframe color, you got to be extra careful to remember that the object's been frozen and won't be able to be selected in the view. Now, as a side note, frozen objects can still be selected by going through the Select by Name dialog. Let's choose the Unfreeze by Name list to thaw out the yellow container. And now, with the rails visible, we'll take the container, making several copies. When the clone dialog opens, I'll type in 4. Lastly, for the unfreeze commands, you can always unfreeze all. By the way, just as the hide commands run to the right click, so are the freeze. So hopefully that'll give you a clearer picture on when to hide and when to freeze. Both are valuable features in helping to improve your workflow. Make sure to take advantage of what they offer when working on your next project.